What is the perception of safety worth? Is it worth giving up many of the rights and liberties we have been guaranteed by our country's Constitution? The government has executed a classic bait and switch by advertising a safer America via heightened surveillance while actually using it to conduct operations pertaining to low-level or nonviolent crimes. The use of wiretapping for nonviolent crimes has made it easier than ever for cops to investigate low-level cases at the expense of American citizens' privacy. To conduct ongoing surveillance on Americans long before 2001. In fact, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, was enacted in 1978. It was passed in response to revelation by the Church Committee showing a widespread abuse of government wiretaps, and to growing concerns on the part of the Supreme Court over eavesdropping practices. The 9/11 attacks created a sense of hysteria amongst our nation's people and helped the NSA justify and push through the necessary legislation in order to pass the obstructive Patriot Act. The Patriot Act expanded the list of crimes eligible for wiretapping warrants and may now be used to investigate lower-level and non-terrorism cases. The Patriot Act was passed on the premises of investigating potential terrorist threats and other violent crimes. However, the law enforcement agencies seemingly use this more frequently for offenses and not pertaining to our national security. Unfortunately, we have no idea what the government's intentions were for the rise of surveillance and how it's being used and misused today. The FBI claims wiretapping is strictly controlled and used only for the most serious of cases. The protocol requires all law enforcement officers to establish probable cause that the wiretaps may provide evidence of a felony violation or a federal law to combat terrorism and the most serious crimes. Wiretapping without meeting these stringent requirements and obtaining the necessary court order is a serious felony under the law. These court cases are not being executed, and there has been little to no record of their felonious law enforcement tactics. One prominent example of the government's misuse of wiretapping takes place in the Los Angeles suburb of Riverside, where a massive wiretapping operation exceedingly violates the federal law. The DEA has secretly helped turn the county into the nation's wiretap capital, even though federal prosecutors repeatedly warned that the surveillance ordered violated a separate part of the wiretapping law and would not withstand a legal challenge. These wiretaps have led to numerous illegal arrests that cannot be properly prosecuted, thus resulting in a senseless invasion of privacy. In a groundbreaking effort to gain unrestricted access to our personal data, the government is now attempting to change how technology companies are creating their software. The New York Times now reports that the U.S. government is seeking to establish new regulations that would outlaw encryption systems that don't provide a built-in way for third parties to intercept and decrypt the data. Companies like Apple are pushing back against these invasive attempts, stating, "Apple has never created a backdoor or master key to any of our products or services. We have also never allowed any government direct access to Apple servers, and we never will." Mark Klein wasn't the only person that stepped forward to impose the government's illegal spying. Carolyn Jewell, as well. What just happened? Mark Klein, showing that AT&T is cooperating with the illegal surveillance. The undisputed documents show that AT&T installed a fiber optic splitter at its facility at 611 Folsom Street in San Francisco that makes copies of emails, web browsing, and other internet traffic to and from AT&T customers and provides these copies to the NSA. Mark Klein wasn't the only person that stepped forward to impose the government's illegal spying. Carolyn Jewell, as well as several other customers and former AT&T employees, filed a class action lawsuit against the NSA for violating the Constitution. Ironically, the judge ultimately dismissed the case, citing lack of evidence because the NSA has destroyed so much of it, claiming it was harmful to disclose the info to anyone without proper clearance. It was another case of the government abusing their power and the judicial system lack of ability to hold them accountable. And then the truth poured out, thanks to Edward Snowden, a whistleblower who's responsible for one of the most significant leaks in the U.S. political history. Snowden, a former CIA intelligence agent, truly opened the eyes of the Americans from a government's inside perspective. Snowden, who is living in asylum in Russia, sacrificed his citizenship and possibly freedom to reveal the truth about how the government has destroyed privacy, internet freedom, and basic liberties for Americans who are using this massive surveillance program. He faces treason charges in America for exposing the government's illegal spy tactics when he should be rewarded for his bravery in standing up for our rights. It's astonishing how many other NSA employees saw what Snowden did and kept quiet. So, let's assess, shall we? It's been 15 years since the Patriot Act was passed, and it has become glaringly apparent that this emergency measure, sold as a necessary instrument in the fight against terrorism, was nothing more than a red herring. Statistically, we aren't any safer now than the days before September 11, 2001. In reality, this program is being used routinely to violate the privacy of American citizens, in primarily non-terrorism cases, while stripping us of a constitutional right through fear-mongering. As long as the Patriot Act is in use, we are a failing victim of terrorism by relinquishing our rights and freedom. This bill of goods we've been sold by the government comes at a price that is much too high and much too little in return.